Hello and welcome to Right Hive 2023, the panel for selling books on TikTok. We have 5 great panelists today. I'll have them introduce themselves.
R.L. Parker or Rick, either way is fine with me. I am an epic fantasy, dark fantasy author. I have 3 novels out now, and I've been on TikTok since November 22.
Joseph S. Samaniego, a fantasy author, a little bit sci-fi, and also a research historian. So I have a couple history work out there too. And I've been on TikTok for about maybe a little under a year now.
Hi, I am Marisa. I write YA in the speculative field, so anything from sci-fi, horror, dystopian, fantasy. I've got a couple of trilogies out now. My TikTok handle is Marisa Noelle 12. And I've been on TikTok it's just coming up to 2 years now. So that's fun.
Hey, I'm Nicole. Nicole Writes Books on TikTok. I've been on TikTok, I guess. I'm trying to think now that everyone's introducing themselves this way. I guess maybe a little bit before my 3rd book was published, so like early 2021, and I write kind of all over the place. My most recent novel is Until We Fall. It's dystopian, mostly contemporary, and then I have a couple of things coming out over the next couple of years. So.
All right. Hi. I honestly have been on TikTok probably since like 2020 or so. There was this little thing called COVID, and I was like, I could make a bunch of silly movies, at home to give the illusion of community. And that's kind of what sparked that. I'm Quillful writer there. I do some writing stuff. I do some cosplay stuff. I talk about games a lot. So that's kind of what I do over there. I am an inclusive writer, and I'm rather genre fluid. I do like the fantasy genre a lot, but I have some other stuff with like superheroes and sci-fi, and I just kind of all over the place. I'm gonna blame the ADHD. It's probably a factor. And yeah, that's me.
Right. And I'm Adria Belton. I'm your moderator today. I have some short kind of horror or fantasy stuff published, and I am here to learn just like our attendees. So just get started with our first questions. And the big question for everyone is, how useful is TikTok for selling books?
Part of me would say that would want to make a joke and say that there's no social media that's really all that useful for selling books, because I'm still working a day job. But the other part of me, for the panel here, joking aside, is it's fun. And that adds to the creativity for me. And it adds to the interactions with those who either want to read, maybe a new fantasy book or just find something new to read, or just other authors and writers who can, impart some of their experiences and wisdom on, similar to this. I mean, I wouldn't be here at this panel this morning, or evening or afternoon, whatever time zone you might be in, if it wasn't for the platform, the TikTok platform. So I would say that it's useful in terms of selling books, because there's more to just making profits in selling books, in my opinion. And that's kind of one thing I have kind of geared my TikTok account around, is that it's not all about the money. There's more to it. And so for me, I would say 100% useful. I haven't been as active this last week or so because other things have been going on, but I would not want to stop.
Yeah, I'll chime in. And from my perspective, I am on all of the major social media systems because I'm an author, and only because I'm an author. And TikTok is hands down the best for reaching readers and fellow authors. There's a huge community there. And it can feel daunting to get into as an author, because you're like, I write, that's what I do. That's not pictures, that's not video. This isn't my medium. But I've only been on TikTok for 3-4 months now, and I can track over 200 sales on just TikTok. And that's without me actually trying to sell my books.
honestly, that's kind of been my experience with TikTok too. I mean, I'm going to say it outright. Just do ebooks, and I've noticed that like hard copies sell better. So when it comes to like sales, I don't really structure mine the same way because I have like a coffee account, and so I have it through supporters and tips, and that's so I don't necessarily sell a story like the way a hard copy would be. But I find that when I'm on TikTok, people want to hear my story. They want to hear about my OCs. They want to hear about, and I mean, of course, every character is an OC, but they want to engage versus there is a certain atmosphere on other social media platforms where there's like this initial resistance of like, oh, you're trying to sell me something. And like technically you are, but as Joseph said, it's about more than just profit. It's a community, it's a network, it's readership. It's that engagement between a storyteller and their audience. So, and that's kind of an atmosphere I've really only seen on TikTok. You're not going to get that on a lot of other platforms because the idea, it kind of eclipses that there's a story here and they're like, well, you're trying to sell me a book. And it's like trying to tell you a story. And in the process, I have to sell you a book, yes. But they don't have that kind of same focus that they would on TikTok where you see something and you're like, well, that's a cool story and I want to hear more.
Absolutely. I think, you know, how useful is TikTok for selling books? I think it's variable. I think it depends on the author. I think it depends on the genre, and all of those things can change. It's different for everyone. When I first joined, I was launching a book, but I hadn't really built up anything. It was out. But I noticed as I was starting to release other books, there was a lot more engagement the more I talked about my books, other books, you know, your content. You don't want to just be sell, but you want to be engaged in the community. That's really important. But I noticed a huge uptake in my sales at that point. Then in January of 2022, there was a huge initiative in the UK from a guy called Mark Dawson, who does advertising courses for authors. And everybody on his ads course went and joined TikTok because everyone was hearing how successful it was. And that changed things, in my opinion. It was harder to get noticed. The algorithm in TikTok changes. So what may work one month may not work next month, or you have to constantly try new things. So, you know, if you can find your own way to do it, it can absolutely be a game changer. But there are a lot of people that struggle with it as well. So it's not a magic bullet, I would say.
Yeah, no, I think for me that the thing that has been most helpful re TikTok is connecting with readers from the various backgrounds that I'm writing about, and readers from you know, the communities that mean a lot to me. So like I write a lot of queer books, I write a lot of, you know, books about found family and community in that way. And so like I've been talking about, I have a book coming out early 2025, and I've been talking about how the main character is non-binary, uses she they pronouns, and is bisexual. And I see a lot of people in the comments, you know, get really excited about that and to see themselves represented. And so I think that is something that I might not have had as much connection with those readers that I really want to reach on different platforms or not being on platforms. So I think that is the most exciting thing about TikTok for me, is connecting with other, you know, other folks with those same identities, and saying, I have this story and, you know, this representation. Yeah, it's been cool.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, and
I think I was just going to add, sorry, I was going to say, TikTok is a great place for writing things that aren't necessarily mainstream or that traditional publishers haven't really accepted yet. Probably a lot of what you write, Nicole, to be honest.
Yes.
And it's a really great place to reach the readers who are looking for exactly that. So yeah, it's great for that.
I think the book I have in my background is like has a poly romance in it, so confirmed. Like I haven't gotten there yet in the story because I do serial installments, but yeah, trying to promote this book anywhere but TikTok, dead end.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't mean to step on your toes there, Marisa or Quillful. I actually
Not at
think
all.
you all are transitioning really well to the next question I had, which is what distinguishes marketing on TikTok compared to other platforms? And it sounds like one of the things is that the audience is different. The audience on TikTok is looking for things that maybe aren't in other places. But in addition to that, or expanding upon that, what do you think distinguishes TikTok?
So from my perspective, let's compare to the other platforms, right? So Twitter, you're really not going to reach readers. You can reach other authors. You can have great conversations there. I've got thousands of followers there. They're all authors. You try and post something there or run an ad and you try and tag the readers community, you're just going to get nothing out of it. Facebook, you can reach readers there if your ad is formatted the right way. But the reader communities don't allow authors to talk about their own works. So even there, unless you've got a PA that you're paying to jump into those, or a street team that you've built that's going to jump into those and talk about your book, you're not selling for yourself. Other people have to sell for you. But that is where I pay for ad services because I get the best bang for the buck there so far. For TikTok, it's almost like being at a convention where you can meet your readers in person, especially once you get over 1,000 and you can do lives. That's where most of my sales have come, is TikTok lives. And half the time I don't even know that they're going to buy my book. We're just talking about cars or whatever else. And then somebody in chat will ask a question about what I write, and then I'll show my covers. And then next thing you know, I check Amazon the next morning and I've got 10 sales. So it's just, and it's the engagement, because those readers come back and they're ravenous for your next thing because they met you, because there's a connection.
I think to go off of that, building that connection, it's different on TikTok than it is on other apps. And I think that a lot of the videos that I make that get a lot of viewership and a lot of likes are about my cat, or about, I talk about having like various chronic conditions. Like that's, people respond to that, and then they see like, oh, this is a person, and they might be more interested in checking out my books and the things that I write. So I think that I think that people are interested in knowing about the people behind their books, especially in recent years, like what's happened with J.K. Rowling and Margaret Atwood. I think people are really wanting folks that they can connect with.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think it's having that direct access to somebody, whereas readers didn't really have that before, and authors couldn't get to their readers, no matter where you live, and you can't reach a convention, or you can. There's something so beautiful about these short little clips that you get to see people that come up on your For You page every day, and you feel like you know them, and you share this friendship and this journey, and they encourage you, and it just feels so genuine, more so than the other apps, which feel like you're pushing stuff. Whereas BookTok, I think if you fall into the community in the right way, it can be so supportive, and it just has a feeling like nothing else. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I really agree with all that, because I notice the people who I interact with on TikTok, and I don't have a ton of followers like I have more on other apps, but I feel different as far as interacting. It doesn't feel like I'm just shouting into the void, as I tell my wife sometimes when I post something on Facebook about a book, or or anything. I post anything and it's like, oh, I'm just screaming into the void here because no one's going to say anything, or I'll get very minimal interactions, and it's a running joke in our household, because other people will post something and you'll see it. And TikTok, I don't feel that, because I'll post something and I do feel that there's more people seeing it, and then it just makes you feel good when you see that little heart pop up when you open up the app. It makes you feel good. Or you see someone commented. But one of the things that I love about TikTok that's kind of a little different what we're saying is there's a lot more creativity when you post something. I have been able to gear my whatever I'm promoting. I know we're going to mention about promoting later, but I've been able to gear it more towards that book than I can like on Twitter. When I'm posting something on Twitter, it's just I'm writing a little snippet, which I hate blurbs and I hate writing snippets. I wish I could pay someone to do that for me. But, and then I'm posting a picture, or I'm posting maybe a short book trailer, or I'm posting the link, and I'm hoping that the link shows up the right way, or it doesn't just show like the website, it actually shows the picture of the book type of thing. Whereas on TikTok, I can actually put like the book that I have behind me right here. It has a little bit more of a psychedelic feel. So I put in psychedelic style music to go with the little book trailer that I made up on Canva and everything. And I can do that more so there than anywhere else. And I just feel like my efforts are being more rewarded because it's such a better, more creative outlet.
No,
That's,
for
yeah,
sure.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of segues into the thing that I was thinking with. One of my favorite things about TikTok is that it is a community cultivated completely on the concept of sharing ideas and having a lot of similar creative perspectives on things. And the dork that I am, I always go to the sea shanties on TikTok for the example of this. I'm like, those were popular from the 16th to the 19th century and then just disappeared. And then all of a sudden you've got people stitching their videos together to create sea shanties while they're at home in the 21st century. I mean, like, that's incredible. And that's kind of the spirit of TikTok is let's share our ideas. Let's share our songs. Let's share our stories. There's none of this defensive territory. I mean, not none of it, but I've been able to avoid it. This like territorialness about like, no, this is my idea and no one has ever thought of this character dynamic before me, which is patently untrue. Like, we've all, like, the whole thing with a story to resonate with someone else, there has to be something about the human experience in it. So someone has had this idea before and that's okay. It's other people enjoying your story, your take on this human experience, and it's beautiful. And that's kind of why it captures so much of it with TikTok. And I think there's so much resonance with like using the songs and things like that. Like, yes, it works for the algorithm as well. If you're using a song that's popular with the themes that are in your book, it's going to reach people who like that song and therefore your book. The algorithm likes it, but it also makes human organic person sense. And that's what I really like about the whole platform.
What's funny is it was the sea shanties that got me on to watching TikTok. That's a hilarious little like loop there. Did everyone
I
get
think that's what got a lot of people there.
Yeah, I got. So then how do you find that community? How do you build a following on TikTok?
I've found that most of what's been successful for me in building followers is not trying to really build followers. The main thing that I started really posting a lot of before I really kind of was like, oh yeah, here, by the way, I'm putting a book out, because I wasn't ready to promote it yet, because you never want to promote it too soon. Was like, well, what else could I say? Because I don't want to just have nothing on here. So I started with you know what? I'm seeing a lot of this stuff about people, not, making these mistakes about intellectual property and not protecting their rights. So I was picking up Chinese with my eldest daughter, and I said, I'm just gonna make a quick video here. And so we did it in the car, let her say hi and everything. And then it was just like, protect your intellectual property. And I went through that, did several videos, just tips and stuff for other writers and creators and artists, and just said, now we just kind of was like, you got to protect yourself and you got to, get support. And I showed, one of the people, my brother, who's been one of my biggest supporters. And I was just, encouraging the authors and the people who were watching the videos to just being encouraging and saying, don't give up. And there was stuff like that and things that I feel and things I wish people were telling me when I first started. And I was really in the trenches of wanting to give up and stop and things that pushed me through. And I was like, well, if I can help somebody here, I want to do that. And I think that resonated with people, and that built followers who have continued to watch those videos. Because you see, that's the other good thing, is you can see who's watched your videos. and it always brings a joy to my face to see like, oh, yeah, we follow each other and they're watching my video. Cool. That's great. I love seeing that. Or friends of mine who are other authors. There's one here in my home state, and we interact and stuff, and it's just great to see that. So I think just going out there doing your own thing, but not trying to really seek out followers will usually bring followers to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think TikTok is about being genuine and authentic. And I think the viewers can see it a mile off if you're really trying to push something too hard and schmaltzy and salesy. So really, you need to be there because you want to be there and because you enjoy the app, and you can be creative in different ways. There are people that never show their face and they can still get huge followings if you're not comfortable with that. So really do what makes you happy, but also think about the kind of person you want to read your book, and appeal to that kind of cutout person you want. And really, I think the easiest place to start is just on the hashtag book talk. Start following accounts, whether they're authors or readers, and engage with people. TikTok rewards engagement. So if you like, comment, on other people's stuff, that's how you start building a relationship and having people follow you back. Most of the book talk community will follow back because we're all there for the same thing. We want to talk about books. So you just keep doing that, and I think you'll see your followers will start ticking up, naturally, which is what you want.
And I was going to chime in on the same thing. One of the first things I did was I started off treating it like Twitter, where you follow and hope for follow backs. But I also started my account on TikTok as a business account because I publish under my own imprint, which is an LLC. So I can't do the trendy stuff, right? I can't use a lot of the music and things like that. There are different constraints on a business account for that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to do video versions of the same kind of questions and answers that I would get asked on Twitter and on Facebook from other authors, just things I've learned along the way. Not that I know it all, I certainly don't, but I do get a lot of people that ask me, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? So I just started doing TikTok videos based on that. And anybody that finds me on the app, you'll see like my first 2 months, I have over 120 videos I posted that are like, hey, if you're going wide, here's this idea, and just different things. And some of it was little videos here and there intermixed of my writing process or the progress I was making on the book I was writing at the time. Or I think I maybe had, out of the first 150 videos, maybe 5 were pitching my books. But people swarmed to me. I'm assuming, I've felt in the community since then that it's because I was just being myself. I wasn't trying to put on a show. I wasn't sell all the time. I wasn't leaning on all of the hyper trendy stuff. I'm just me. Take it or leave it.
I would say like definitely that sincerity and authenticity goes such a long way. And I think another thing that I really enjoy about the TikTok platform is that you don't necessarily have to stick to one trend or one thing. Like, if you have a YouTube channel, they're like, it's got to be one thing. And for me, it's like, well, all of my content stems from storytelling and my love for stories. So even when I'm doing a cosplay video, it's because I love this character from this story. And to me, it kind of still builds that engagement and that community and that followership, because my name is Quillful Writer on TikTok. So they know I tell stories, and every time I post a video, it's right there at the bottom, like, oh, this person likes the same stories that I do. They're doing an analysis video on a video game that I like, and they're going super in depth. I'm sure they don't overthink anything, but I'm sure I'd love the stories that they write. And that's kind of where, for me, I'm really happy sharing a bunch of different videos, and I don't have to do sell all the time, because it is 200% my least favorite part of writing is trying to sell the book. I'd rather engage on like a story standpoint, and that's where all of my videos come from, and that's kind of how I got to the point where I'm at. It's not like I'm a really big account. I have 1,200 followers. That's kind of big from where I started, of course, but it's not like I can make playlists or something. I don't have 10,000 followers. I don't have those sorts of abilities, but I have people who engage with my content, who are happy that I'm there, who want to read my stories, who want to talk to me about video games. So it's a whole community and a culture that is built around more than just like, I have a story, please pay me, which is like the least entertaining thing that I could do as a writer. So it's just more fun and just an easier way to promote in that sense.
Yeah, I'll just agree with what folks were saying about the engagement, to engage on other videos and, to talk about other people's books. Just, don't be selfish, I think is is a general good rule.
Okay, then. Marisa mentioned early, hop on the book talk hashtag. What are the best practices for captions and hashtags for TikTok then?
I think the advice on this has actually recently changed. That they used to say stuff your limit with hashtags, both some that are general like book talk and some that are more related to your niche. So if you were a horror writer, maybe you write horror book talk or the name of your book or your name. But the general advice at the moment is that you shouldn't try to use more than 5 hashtags in a single post. And that the algorithm is actually looking at is running like a search engine now rather than an app per se. So you want what you say to reflect what's in your captions as well as the text that you put on the screen. And then TikTok will be more likely to put you onto the For You page and also categorize you so that to make you searchable. Because you can search hashtags book talk and that's where you want to come up. You want to come up on book talk, you want to come up on fantasy books or wherever you want to be. So make sure you have that in your captions and your hashtags and your text on screen and what you're actually saying if you're speaking aloud. And then that all kind of aligns together, I would say.
Yeah, I probably am one of the worst at hashtags. So I keep it, my go-tos for everything is, am writing fantasy or hashtag fantasy. But I've noticed though that a lot of the hashtags are almost being appropriated for other that have nothing to do with the hashtag. So I've kept to the niche hashtags more, but I have noticed that when you try to do the niche, it doesn't always seem to work out as well. So I feel like it's almost like a guess and check method. I'm trying to think of the other, you basically just try and fail or you try and succeed, just maybe if it works out this time, it may not work next time. I think someone alluded to, kind of what's going on this month. The algorithm this month is different than next month type of thing. So I really feel it's just kind of like a guess and check and trying to pinpoint down something that is consistently successful, which could also be relative to what I feel is successful, maybe is different from what everyone else feels is successful as far as hashtag engagement. But it's just, I just keep trying different ones and seeing which ones work best.
And variety is key. Sorry, I was just going to say, because if you copy and paste the same hashtags every time, you might get shadow banned or your TikTok doesn't like that. So you want to vary up what you're saying in your captions with the same kind of message, but use different language because otherwise it's not going to show it to anyone. They think you're not making an effort. So
I think most of the time I only use 2 to 4 hashtags, if any. And there's some of my best videos have no hashtags. So
good for you.
I'm too scared not to have a hashtag. I have to have at least one, just so I'm too scared not to put one.
Yeah, same.
It's one of those things where it's like I usually do go over 5, but I treat it like it's very similar to the Tumblr algorithm in that sense. Yes, I am one of the few remaining real people on Tumblr, I guess. There are actually more of us, but it's kind of like the top 5 ones are the ones that you want to be the most important and relevant to your video, and then you can kind of taper off into your niche things. And I do mix it up I'll admit with a lot of book talk drama that I've seen, I tend to be a little afraid of book talk. I won't lie. There is some anxiety around. I'm like, I gotta make sure this video is perfect if I'm putting it on book talk. But I do a mix of it. I'll do like, indie writer TikTok, because I know like indie writer talk, because that's a higher volume one that I know is going to be popular. And then I'll do OCs of color, which is much smaller as a hashtag. But I know that everyone in that hashtag likes what I have to say because it's a niche. Because like Joseph was saying, it's like a smaller thing. I know I'm talking to people who are interested and invested, versus if I say like indie writer talk, you might be, you might not be. So you have to have that kind of blend in order to get the most out of it, in my experience. And as long as you aren't appropriating hashtags or something like that, like if you're not sure about a hashtag, check it before you put it on your video. But you're pretty much going to be able to tell if something fits or doesn't. I mean, once in a while I'll do something like, because there are different sounds around on TikTok and they aren't all the same, I'll do the hashtag for the sound. So like funny, but not funny, haha. Like I'll use that hashtag, because if you like that idea and you're looking for things that fit into that concept, then that still works for me. It still helps me, but I would never put it in the top 5 hashtags.
Also, with hashtags, something that I have been doing is, again, don't copy paste the same thing every time, but if you put your username as a hashtag, so I always hashtag Nicole Writes Books.
Yeah.
If the user that is looking at that video likes that video or engages with that video, the algorithm will show them more videos with that same hashtag. So if you hashtag your videos with your username, that'll pop up more on a person who previously liked your videos, FYP. And then to talk about captions, because I don't think we've really touched on that yet, and just like accessibility, just have them. Is a good general rule. And then also to go through them, there are certain words that the algorithm doesn't like. The algorithm in general doesn't like expletives. So if you're swearing in your video, to go into your captions after, and you can, change letters in an expletive, or to make sure that the algorithm doesn't catch that. And then also in terms of accessibility and hashtags using a sentence case. So it's something that I'm really bad at, that I'm trying to get better at in terms of accessibility for readers. So basically what that means is that if I'm hashtagging Nicole Writes Books, that the N, the W, and the B in Nicole Writes Books should all be capitalized to make it easier for folks with certain processing disorders, or just easier to read in general.
And as far as captions go, I do want to point out that like something that's really fun and also kind of contributes to the accessibility is you can absolutely put like a moderate amount of emojis in your captions. Like don't put so much that it becomes visually overstimulating, but there's a big difference between like pardon me and being like, excuse me. Like, so you'd put like sparkle emojis on either side of that excuse me. You do like the fingernail emoji to show that you are using attitude. Like that's stuff that I've seen on a lot of videos that have a high engagement. They'll put like a little bit of emojis into their captions to showcase the personality of what they're saying, the tone of what they're saying, so that if you're hard of hearing or you're on a bus or whatever, and you can't necessarily turn the sound on, you still get the whole experience of watching that video. So that's another fun thing you can do with captions. Just don't go absolutely ham, like 1 or 2 emojis is fine. Other than that, it's like, I can't even read this, my eyes hurt.
Do you kind of related to that, when you look at the hashtags, it sort of gives suggestions with sort of viewer count? Do you let that viewer count influence which hashtags you pick? No?
The algorithm is so finicky that it just doesn't even, like, maybe it was angry that day and it has nothing to do with your video.
Yeah,
Also,
like
I
if I'm one of, go for
I
it.
find that the larger the hashtag, the more likely you get lost in the shuffle.
Okay.
So I personally, I pick the hashtag that makes sense for the video, and that's it. I'm not trying to game the
relevance.
system.
Yeah, relevance I think is definitely key.
And I might
I'll-
choose like engagement is gonna make my decision more for me than anything else. Like if I saw a hashtag that had like I use LGBTQ stuff often because they're in every story that I write. If I see one with like a little rainbow flag next to it, even if it has lower engagement than something that doesn't, I'm like, that rainbow flag is coming with me. I'm not leaving here without it. So, because to me, that's like more of that pride community engagement. So I will choose one that has like a lower viewership if I feel it fits what I'm doing better.
Yeah. And I just want to agree with that, because for me, it really, the content of the video of what I'm posting is more important in terms of aligning with the hashtag than if people react to it or if I get the engagement from it. That's second. So as long as the hashtag is relevant, that's really the main focus for me on that.
I'll do a mix. Like if I see something trending, sometimes I'll just stick it in the video, but then I'll also have, hashtag book talk, hashtag queer books, hashtag spooty rep, whatever it is.
Well, that segues well into my next question, which is, what are the do's and don'ts of creating content? So are there trends to follow? Are there things you definitely want to avoid doing?
Being so new to it, I don't know if I've actually if hopped on a trend yet, or if I have. I've thought about it, and then just trying to be humorous with it. But I would say like the biggest do is just kind of like we've mentioned already, is just be yourself and be relatable and be true to you and be who you are, because that's what comes through the best that I've seen, and that even in others that you watch. Some of them you can just kind of get real like, really, that's kind of cringy type thing. But for me, yeah, it's just definitely that's the biggest do. And it's just a don't is, I guess, kind of total opposite of that. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't force it with everything, even with, with writing and with anything. Just don't force it, because if you force it, it's not going to be authentic and it's not going to be relatable, and it's just not going to be enjoyable for anybody, you or the viewer. So just have fun. That's the, have fun with it and be relatable, be you.
I think a tip, I think some more specific tips, stitch or duet popular creators, because people will see that if they like those creators. I did a stitch recently with Books with Lee, who is a really cool creator. If y'all don't follow her, she's doing this year a Reads Across Asia challenge. Last year it was Reads Across Africa, but I stitched a video of hers recently, and I kind of, took off, for me at least. But I guess do, if something's just like a trending sound, just save it to your sounds. If you have an idea for that, or, feel free to look at other people's videos. Like I think it was Quillful that said earlier, people aren't really possessive on the app. So it's cool to share ideas. And then in terms of don'ts, I would say that the algorithm, just by virtue of the fact that, human error and the fact that we live in a society that is a certain way, will push white content creators, will push straight content creators, will push. So I would just, think critically about the type of stuff that you see on your For You page. And is that something that you want to support? And then, is that something that you want, your people to see on the app, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
So-
makes sense to me.
I'd add some pretty significant don'ts. Things that can get your account completely taken away from you. Don't post links in your descriptions of your videos. If you have a business account, or if you have an account that's over 1,000 and you can put a link in your bio, be careful what link you put there. Even if you try and share a link in a comment to the same thing that's in your bio, it can get flagged. That comment can get taken down. Your whole video can get taken down. Had it happen. I had somebody come in and say, "Hey, where can I get that book?" And I linked to my website, which is linked in my profile. And they're like, "Nope." And they took the whole video down. Really? So you kind of got to play this little watching what you're saying game to a point. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're near your parents and you just learned a cuss word, you've got to remind yourself not to use it. There's a lot of things that you kind of want to be careful saying, especially if you're doing the TikTok lives. That you can't say words like death or die or kill, or, you know, even if it's in your book, even if you're reading a passage from your novel and somebody had their life taken, you can't say those things or you'll get kicked off your live and banned for a week, or your whole account can get taken down. There's a lot of people that do lives and lots of videos often that have 2 and 3 accounts as backups, and they get their followers to go follow those backups just in case, because they know that that ban is coming. So I'd say definitely get a feel for the community and how the different videos that different people are putting out are formulated and the types of things they don't say. And listen to the weird lingo and hear people talking about being banana and, you know, stuff like that, because, you know, or unaliving a character. There's a lot of that stuff that's different by necessity. So I see a couple of young authors a month will pop in and they think they're going to buck the system and just talk the normal way. They don't want to be trendy and use these slang terms that are TikTok specific. And then next thing you know, their account's gone because they didn't adhere to the advice that we've all had to start living by.
I will say, sorry.
Well,
I was just going to say there's some good points. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I actually did have something kind of similar happen. My daughter was filming me doing a talking about something, you know, with support system, you know, paying dues. It was the video about paying dues, but she was filming me and I was driving, but she was filming me. She was holding the camera, the phone. I was driving, you know, yeah. And it said at the bottom, do not, you know, this is dangerous activity. And it's just like, I mean, I've been driving for 25 some years now, and it's not that dangerous for me. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, I guess the image is I'm filming while I'm driving, when in reality someone else. And I had to clarify that in a couple of comments, because like, oh my God, you had me so scared. I'm like, you know, it was okay. But I've learned, don't do that again, because that is considered a dangerous activity. And I don't want to encourage anyone to do that. I don't want to encourage you to put anyone in. I don't want to make it seem like I'm endorsing doing something dangerous on TikTok. So it was a lesson learned. But yeah, so it's definitely like kind of like you're saying, just be mindful of what you were saying and what you were doing as you're filming or as you're posting.
Yeah, I've got an author I talk with often who is a truck driver as his day job, and he has to be really careful when he joins lives to mute frequently and not have his camera on and everything else, because it's just off to the side. He's not looking at his screen, but the algorithm doesn't care.
Wasn't Nicole gonna say something along this subject? Was it
Oh,
Nicole?
it's totally fine. But no, I was just gonna say that, like, in terms of the possibility of getting banned, and in terms of you know, what gets a person banned, I would say, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, because I'm not trying to like encourage people to get banned. But the algorithm also will get angry. Like I can give y'all a specific example that I made a series of videos last Pride Month about, you know, queer coded characters, and they kept getting reported. So, you know, what was really cool to be a queer creator who could possibly get banned during Pride Month. But I had to make the decision then to continue to talk about that and continue to, you know, engage with that. And it ended up being fine. I was like one reported video shy of getting banned. But for me, I think I didn't want to not talk about those things. So again, you know, you can create backup accounts. The community, I think in general, is really good about, you know, if something like that were to happen, there was a while that, you know, Black content creators were getting banned left and right for talking about Black content, and, you know, people really rallied around them. So I think that also goes into the making the connections, and you know, if you make connections with folks, they'll want to follow your backup accounts, and, you know, they'll support you through, you know, they'll make sure that if you do get banned, that you know, you're able to get back on the app. And So I think that all of that is kind of related to what y'all were saying before.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I think Rick has some really good points as well. If you write steamy things, I have a pen name and I write steamy romance. I have lots of community violations on that account because it's difficult to advertise that kind of book without saying particular words or showing particular images. And yes, we want to be aware that there are lots of young people on this account, and we don't want to be them seeing content they shouldn't be seeing. As far as I'm concerned, everything I've posted is quite tasteful, but sometimes TikTok doesn't agree. So you've got to be very careful if you're a steamy romance author about what your vocabulary is and what images you are putting out there. Yeah.
And I will say there's like been a lot of weird stuff with TikTok with things like that. Like they used to be a lot worse about these things. Like I had someone I had followed who did like comedy songs, and she was wearing like a fitted shirt in one of them because it was like a joke about working out and not wanting to work out, and it was reported for nudity. And she's like, my shirt's blue. I'm not blue. Like I am very clearly wearing clothing in this video, and it was
You're
restored.
also more likely to get flagged for stuff like that if you're a plus size creator. So like the app is
She was a creator color and plus size.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's also, you know, when things like that happen, I think for me, you know, changing the culture of the app is important, and you might get banned for that,
but it has been working. The culture of the app has been improving. Like I've been hearing about this less. I've been seeing this issue less with the creators that would actually impact. Like obviously, I'm not going to have issues with people doing certain things in different minorities that I'm not part of, but I've been, you know, I keep in touch with these minority creators for a reason, so that I know that this platform is going to be a safe place for all of us. It's their videos I'm sharing, it's their videos I duet, because I want it to be something that like, that's like an artful, intentional thing though, where it's like, we don't want to make it so that the algorithm is rejecting smaller voices, that it's, you know, these minor creators who are being targeted by people who are less accepting. And it really has helped TikTok get better about not banning people because they're getting mass reported by someone who doesn't want to see anyone who's not mainstream. It's really made a lot of strides there. It's not perfect, but it's, I think, safer than it was. And I want to take a little moment to be like, we are making progress, and the risks that you're taking with things like talking about queer content, and I've had to deal with it as well with a lot of my queer content, making a stand for other marginalized creators has really
all of the strides that have been made on the app are due to marginalized creators, and and you know, unpaid labor, and you know, people really working to make the app more safe for everyone else,
which is like, it's a good thing. And the more of us that join and the more of our voices become part of it, the more it's like, you're not going to get banned for being like, I don't want to kiss men. I'm sorry, men. Like, that's not a bannable offense. So it is progress, and the more of us work together and stick together, the whole, you know, when one of us is attacked, we all roll for the initiative mentality, the better it's going to be, the happier of a platform it is. And I would put that solidly under a do. That's a do. That's my recommendation. As far as don'ts go, I would say I've seen a lot of videos about like people making fun of other people's stories, and that is a hard no from me. Like, they get viewership for it because they're making fun of somebody, but it's like, just because you don't like this story doesn't mean it's not a good one. Or maybe they're a new writer and it's a little cringe. I mean, think back to yourself at 13 and be like, yeah, I was an actual pillar of cringe. That was kind of my job. I was 13. I excelled. Like, so let people do things that they're still finding their voice, and if you mock them now, it could, you know, make it really hard for them to want to stay as a writer. And that kind of goes back into like, don't be territorial. It's not that kind of place. It's not a time to be like, you know, Joseph writes fantasy, I write fantasy, Joseph is now my competition. That doesn't make any sense. It's a huge genre, and I don't want to write it all by myself. Thank you, Joseph, for not making me write this alone. I would cry openly. So it's like this, we're sharing a genre, and if Joseph sells the book and I don't, then a fantasy author still sold a book and I'm still happy. So that's kind of the other thing of like, don't get too caught in your head of like, well, someone else making a sale is me losing a sale. It's like, no.
That's
It's
not how it
just,
works.
we're all in this together.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So it sounds like
So that's-
TikTok's a great, it's definitely, it's kind of a non-competitive community in a way. And to lift each other up.
Yeah, that's usually the play. We got a few bad apples like anybody else, but by and large, our apples are good. They're happy apples. I don't know. I'm just making an analogy now. I think it's getting away from me.
All right. Well, let's go back then to a little bit more in the sort of hard and fast tips for those who have come to the panel wanting to see if they can make their TikTok account blow up. And the next few questions I have are very kind of intertwined. So is there a suggested frequency of posting on TikTok? Do you need to create a content calendar in order to maintain a consistent flow of videos? I think it was Rick said he had something like 120 posts the first 2 months or something like that.
The first month.
And then after that, tips for writers with limited time. But let's start like with the frequency and how do you manage your frequency?
So the general advice I hear tossed around my community is 3 videos a day. And that's kind of what I've been parroting too, is anywhere from 2 to 3 videos a day. If you can only do 2 a day, do one at like noon and one right before you go to dinner, and then that places it right about when people are checking, right? Usually you whip out your phone on lunch break or on your way to dinner, but while you're waiting on it to be served or while you're cooking, you'll have it off to the side, whatever. So you kind of play with those little habits and routines that people generally have. Other advice, like I've got my artist that does my cover art. I'm trying to get him in on this app. And he's been leaning heavily on Instagram for years. So for him, my advice was, hey, you've got 200 pieces of art that have nothing to do with my cover art. Why don't you lay one down, film a little 30-second video, save it off on your phone, and just do that for all of them over a weekend, 2 weekends, and then every day set an alarm at noon and an alarm for 5 p.m. And then every time an alarm goes off, upload a video. Easy peasy. For authors, it's mostly just get on the app. You can do a short video talking about your writing process. You'll see tons of videos about, oh, I'm a pantser, I'm a plotter, or I don't like when my characters do this to me, or whatever. Those seem to do well, especially because while it's trendy, it's personal to you. But at the end of the day, it's about staying relevant, at least at first. You have to have something new constantly in people's faces to get that engagement up, to get your follower count up. So I'd say early on, it's probably more critical to post daily, multiple times a day if you can, than it is once you've built a solid following. Because then you tend to get organic growth past that first 1,000. I'm at 2,600 after 4 months now. And I stopped trying after the first 900.
TikTok also has a feature where you can save drafts, which is very helpful. So like, I know I'm chronically ill. I frequently don't have the capacity to record videos. So on a day that like I'm feeling good, I'll just record a bunch and post them at different times. So that also makes it easier.
Up
So
to
like
5.
personally, yeah. So like personally, I don't have a content calendar or anything like that, but I do have, lots of videos and drafts. If I'm, if I haven't posted in the day yet, I can go into my drafts and be like, okay, well, what's one that I've had saved that I can just throw out there, and that makes it easier.
I do that too. I think I have about probably close to 100 in my drafts folder. And if I see a trending sound or, and I used to subscribe to an account called Wave Wild. So she used to send out an email free, but now you have to pay for it. Well, it breaks down twice a week, the trending sounds above 10K, under 10K. She also does reels, CapCut, all of those things. And you can jump on that and know that they're trending and you can create something, you can adapt that to your niche. There are lots of accounts. I don't keep a calendar per se, but if you feel better by having a calendar. A really good account to follow is Mixtus Media, because she will generate content for you and ideas. So whether today is the day you talk about your book, today is the day you talk about book that you loved, you know, your last 5-star read, or you can jump on a book talk challenge, which might be show me a book with a purple cover, a blue cover, a yellow cover, a green cover. And there are lots of fun little things like that that you can do that don't take as much effort as trying to think, what do I do, what do I say, to start building up those videos and knowing that you've got something in your drafts that you can use. Then the more time you spend on the app, the more you'll see that, and you'll see what takes more effort and what doesn't. And you can do book trailers and quotes and aesthetics and talk about your characters. There's so many things that you can do. So I don't keep a calendar, but I just chuck stuff out. I tend to post about 3 times a day. I have another account where I only post once every few days, but that does quite well as well. So who knows? But yeah, just keep looking and look at the hashtags and see what works, is what I would say.
Don't think that there's anything wrong necessarily with reaching out to your community, people that you know that are on TikTok, and asking them how to app. Like when I first started, my sister is Gen Z, and she was like, you need to get on this. There's a huge book talk community. You know, you can talk about your books on there. And I was like, I don't know about that. I'm a millennial. I don't really know how this app works. And so she like helped me make my first couple of videos, and was on there. You know, like we both had my account passwords. Sometimes she would just make videos, and then we would like go back and forth. She would show me how she did it. And then, you know, like a month in, I was like doing it by myself. But I needed that support. And I think that that's also a valid way to get started.
Yeah, I feel like a rookie here, because I don't, you know, I think the last thing I posted was maybe 3 weeks ago ish, around that time.
I wouldn't feel too bad.
But it was, for me, it's, and I could talk more about it in the limited time discussion, because I got 2 kids. One's about to graduate, one's in 1st grade. So it's kind of like being pulled in very different directions. And so I feel, and I'm very critical of myself. So if I slur my words wrong, it's like, nope, got to erase the whole thing. And now I don't feel like doing it, Now, I feel like embarrassed to do it now. And I'm in there by myself, and I'm embarrassed in front of myself. So it's really weird. And then I do feel kind of, you mentioned Gen Z and millennial, and I'm an Xer, so I feel like, am I going to get made fun of for doing certain things, saying certain things? And because I'm a young Xer. I mean, I'm like right at the end, I guess you could say. So I look at that and I kind of say, okay, I have to be in the right mindset to really do something. So I'm just hearing now about the drafts. I'm like, cool, I can actually do a draft. And, if I want to post it, I can. If I want to think on it and kind of stew on it a little bit, I can do that too. So that's kind of cool to hear about that now. But yeah, but I love doing it, because when I post them, I love doing them and like I said, being creative with them. But I feel like, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball when I'm listening to you guys. I'm learning a lot here, actually. So I appreciate all of this, because I feel like I've already gotten like a bunch of ideas for what I'm going to do when I'm done, when we're done here. Like I'm just going to have like 5 of them already set up to go for the next few days.
I wanted to correct myself earlier. I held up the 5. I was thinking drafts were a limit, but it's actually scheduled. So you can do, if you film them on a PC and use the desktop app to upload, you can schedule TikToks in advance, and you can do 10 or 15 as a lead.
Yeah, I mean, I
I've hit
remember
that
that.
limit a couple times.
I know, like earlier, one of us said we had like 100 drafts, and I will occasionally record just like black space and just remind myself what I wanted to do with an audio. So I actually have like 400 drafts, because otherwise I'll forget. My head is Swiss cheese. And occasionally it also turns to bees on me. I am very similar to Nicole in the sense of I have a lot of like chronic neurodivergent stuff. So I usually post once a day. I have posted twice a day before, but occasionally my brain turns to bees and I can't really do much of anything. And it might be like a few days. Like right now I haven't posted for a few days because I've been really busy. So we're lucky if I remember to eat. Like that's kind of where I kind of change my posting schedule to be like, where's my head at? Because I can't get to my drafts that I made on my phone from the desktop app, or at the very least, not on my browser, not on my system. I can't do that. So I couldn't just like hop in and schedule it with what little brain cells I have that are being cooperative. It's something that like I've never been like penalized by that. Usually when I come back and I post a video, I get the same amount of reach than I usually do. If anything, I would say if you've started off slow, don't ramp up too fast, because when I've tried stuff like that, occasionally, like if I post 2 videos really close together, or I start posting a lot when I wasn't posting at all, I'll get like shadow banned, where it just like tanks my viewership because they're like, we don't know what you're doing, but it's something different from what you usually do, and we hate it for you. So it's kind of like you got to ramp it up slowly if you're going to increase it, which is good both for you like mentally and for getting your content schedule ironed out and seeing what works for you. So like 12 and 5 works for you, then go with 12 and 5. And you don't have to go to posting 4 times a day. I mean, there's a lot of people I know who built their platforms by posting 4 times a day when they first started, versus I've always been posting like once a day, taking breaks when I get really busy, and I've still got a decent followership. The engagement rates are always what I want them to be based on the different videos there are. I have different expectations for different things. My original content, I would hover more around like 10%, maybe 1%, depending on if it's like a really marginalized niche thing, like this story on my background. There it is. I would say 1% engagement is amazing for that, versus something that's like, you know, if I'm doing a Fire Emblem analysis, I'm like, well, Fire Emblem, Nintendo's advertising budget is quite a bit larger than mine. So I expect the engagement to be much higher on something like that. So I think that's also important when you're talking about a content schedule, is to set your expectations and know what your engagement rate is going to be. And if your reach isn't quite what you thought it would be, to kind of figure out why, so you can get your footing and realize what's wrong. Did you post too close to another video? Did you post at a bad time? Things like that.
I have 2 quick tips that I wanted to offer just based on this conversation. It might work for folks, it might not. But one is that, you know, in terms of filming a video and, you know, messing up and then having to start all over, one of the ways that I combat that as someone with, you know, anxiety is that I film in chunks. So like I'll say, you know, like, hey, book talk, we're going to talk about X. And then I'll stop the video and then I'll record the next bit. And it looks like it's just an aesthetic thing, but it's actually so that I can calm down and rethink my words. And then the other thing is that for people with kids, with pets, with family, people want to see those things. So if you're like, oh, well, I can't make a video today because I'm out with my kids, just like make a video of being out with your kids, you know, come spend a Saturday with me, or, you know, have your kids talk about your book. I'll like frequently put my cat on the app and just be like, so Artemis wants to talk about my book today. And then I give her an extra treat to reward her for, you know, being part of things. But it's definitely harder with kids. And I don't want to minimize that. There are ways though that you can do both.
So in summary, I'm hearing like record in chunks and when you can, especially if you have distractions or health issues that you need to account for. Make use of the drafts so that you can just throw that up there on the publish part at a convenient time. If you want to use alarms, that's helpful. If not, I have heard of one third-party app, mostly because it advertised to me, about like you can schedule posts. So I wasn't aware that TikTok had any part of any app that allowed scheduling, but I had heard of this third-party app because I used it for other social media. Do you all use a third-party app, or have you heard of third-party apps? No.
I've heard of them. I just don't usually use them because, frankly, the 30 seconds it would take for me to set it up is, highway robbery or something. I don't know. I usually am fine with setting an alarm and just posting it manually. So I've never stressed too much about that kind of thing. But I've heard of them and they work pretty well. I've used them in workplace environments. And again, very intuitive, super easy. If you know how to use TikTok, you're definitely going to be able to use these schedulers and be fine with that for sure.
Yeah, I use a scheduler for Twitter and Instagram, not for TikTok. I just post. I tend to do morning, lunchtime-ish, dinner-ish, and just ish. Nothing's exactly the same time, so it seems fine.
All right. Any other thoughts then, especially on the tips for authors with limited time?
I did have one more thing I wanted to say. They have a Q&A thing on TikTok where there's like existing questions in the ether of the internet. And so if you're not sure, like I know at one point someone had mentioned an account that you could follow that had like different ideas. This can also help where it's like it's just a Q&A, so it's like a comment and responding to it with a video, except it's kind of like its own category. And it wouldn't be like on someone else's comment section. It would be your own self-standing video that's not on someone else's page necessarily, but it can be really good for kind of creating that sense of community and engagement in that regard, because you are talking to someone who did ask this question. And they have a ton of them. Some of them are really weird and unsettling, and you're just going to be like, I didn't see that, Control A, delete. But there are a lot of ones that are good and they're just fun. So it'll be like, I know there was one that was at New Year's that was like, summarize your year. And I was making a little joke about how like I gotten like one extra supporter after I had tried to take like getting the supportership and taking it seriously. I did like a little funny video of like in a whole year I got one more person. And it was just like a funny little video celebrating New Year's and being a little goofy. So, and it worked and it was funny and people thought it was amusing.
I would say also that if you really just don't have the capacity to post one week, just don't stress about it, right? Like your viewership might go down, but you can build it back up. And so you taking care of yourself and not burning yourself out is more important than that week of videos, because if you ignore that, what your body is trying to tell you and what you are capable of doing right now, then you're going to burn out and you're not going to be able to post videos later. So that would be my tip.
Okay. And then we kind of covered some of these questions at the beginning, but at the very beginning, Marisa suggested getting on Book Talk, that's where you want to be. So I did have a question from a friend when I asked fellow writers if they had any questions for this panel. And it was, is it necessary to be on Book Talk's radar? And if so, how do you get noticed in a positive way versus sometimes, we've all heard about the sort of tanking of books or whatever via Book Talk.
If you are talking about books and talking about writing, you will end up on Book Talk. I don't think that there's like a specific way that you have to make your videos to end up on Book Talk. I would say in terms of, a negative, like not ending up on Book Talk negatively, just don't be problematic, right? Like, don't, the last thing I saw, maybe not the last thing, but like I recently saw a book that was getting slammed on Book Talk because the author was being racist. Like, just don't do that. And I think you'll be okay.
I was going to say, as far as landing on the wrong side of Book Talk, it would be disparaging any other author, specifically saying anything negative about ACOTAR. Don't even tread those waters. Anything negative about,
honestly, can I do that? But like Sarah J. Maas is so problematic that I'm just like I can't.
But there are some authors with massive followings, yeah, and while you might not see the backlash on your videos, you will certainly see it if you try and go live.
That's
they will
fair.
hunt you down. They will report you. So, but no, it's really just, again, just be genuine, and when you talk about your book, be open and honest about it. Don't talk don't do any backlash videos or comments about negative reviews. Let those roll off your shoulder. Thank people for positive reviews and videos and comments, but don't go over the top with it, because then it starts to border on cringy. But really, what the readers of Book Talk want to see is a writer that feels like they can engage with, that somebody they can get to know, and somebody they want to hang out with. Yeah, you're cool, so I will therefore try your books, because at the end of the day, there are tens of thousands of books coming out constantly. So why should they pick you over someone else? So more than just a sales pitch, you're really trying to reach them as a person on Book Talk, which is why I think it works.
And I will say, if you get like a negative review that, like, let me just give the example here. Where it's like, I got like hate comments that someone wanted to leave anonymously. So I took a screenshot and I used it as the green screen in my background. And I was like, make a misogynist mad today. Read my stories. Like, I've never cared that hard. If you hate it, just like, don't read it. There's the whole internet. You know how many likes Where Ages Meet has on Wattpad? 1. You had to hunt me down to send that hate mail. That one's on you, man. I'm not Stephen King. I'm not a household name. You worked hard to send that hate mail, and I am going to leverage it to make more people read my story to make you mad. That is like the only way I think you can respond to like negative feedback. If someone just goes like, I hated this story, 1 star, you're like, I don't have enough information here to care that you hate it. Like, I'm sorry. But if they're like literally sending you targeted hate stuff, like, that's how I used it. I was like, what a clown. Like, I'm 31. If you think this is the first time that someone has been like, boo, women to me, like, I was 7 the first time that happened. Like, I'm not scared of you, man. Leave me alone. So you can definitely leverage negative to make it positive and make light of it and just be like, whatever. But I mean, in that case, I had something to talk about. I wasn't just like making fun of them for not liking my story. I was making fun of them for being sexist. So that was like a whole different experience. But if you're me and you're a little intimidated by Book Talk, I would say leverage your niches again. I go to LGBTQ Book Talk all the time because, like, again, I know that that's like a community. I don't have to be like side-eyeing anybody. I understand that like that's a safe platform for me, and I'm not throwing myself in front of millions of people who maybe are going to just hate the book on principle because they're like, I hate having this woke agenda in my face. And I'm like, again, it is not in your face. I have 1 reader for one of my oldest stories. I am not in your face. 1 confirmed reader. I'm sure there are more. They just didn't hit like because, look, we've all been there. Finding the like button is hard and we're tired. So I get it. I definitely get it. So don't want to go into the weeds on that. It's just kind of like, you can find, fantasy book talk, whatever your genre, whatever your medium is, whatever you're happiest with, find the book talk version of that. Ebook talk, indie book talk, go to smaller areas where you can kind of test the waters and find what works for you before you make the jump into book talk as a whole. Or you can stay there if you'd like. That's perfectly fine because it's just a subset of book talk. So that's fine in my eyes. You don't necessarily have to go to book talk at large if you don't ever feel ready for that. Obviously, you are going to take a little hit in sales otherwise. It feels like you want to say something.
So I had one more tiny thing I wanted to add, and that is, don't be discouraged when you first open Book Talk and see that 90% of your brand new FYP is romance and spicy books if you are not a romance and spicy book author. There are plenty of readers out there that read multi-genre or that read fantasy. Just because they're not flooding your FYP doesn't mean they aren't there.
I agree with that also, that Book Talk is so large that there are so many subsections. And I think the best way to find your people is just to start following those accounts, and then those people will follow you back. The algorithm will realize that you like those things. So like if you are going to be talking about your specific genre with your specific subsect of characters, find people that write things that are similar to you.
Well, I think we're getting close to our time here. So I just want to do one sort of general question of advice. And that is, do you have any nuts and bolts tips in general for people with their TikTok account, whether they're starting out or whether they are trying to pursue growth or whatever it is, with our general goal of selling books on TikTok?
I think, I would spend a week or two just watching. Just train your For You page, with what you like, and you do that by liking things or skipping past things you don't want to see, because you're going to start seeing, loads of weird stuff when you first start an account. And then I think just play around with some drafts, figure out some trending sounds, follow some big accounts, see what they're doing, start to comment. You can start commenting before you start creating. And you might even get a few followers through just doing that. But if you start building relationships, then when you do put that content out there, you've got people who might already be interested in what you've got to say. And I think, again, just from a smart point of view, just like I mentioned before, make sure you're searchable. So make sure that your captions and the text you put on screen and what you're saying all correlate, because that's quite important to be searchable on the app. So I think those are my top quick tips.
I just have one tip to add, and that is, other than just swiping past videos you don't like, you can right click and say not interested. So my recommendation is open the app, search for hashtags you're not interested in, and right click on the first video, not interested. Search for the next one you don't want. Right click, not interested.
As far as marginalized creators go, I want to add a little bit of stuff in there where it's like, I would be very careful about the large accounts that you follow. Like, make sure they go out of their way to expressly say that, like, we are a safe space for blah, 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 like whatever it is you're part of. I mean, ideally everything, but you can't fit all of that in the header. Just look at their videos, look at their content, and follow carefully, because there are some people who will unfortunately be racist, and it's not something that comes up in their videos, and you'll be blindsided. You've been following this person for a year and a half, and then it turns out that they hate you for something you were born as. So, like, it's a little rough. You got to be careful who you follow, be selective in that regard, just for your own safety, and never be afraid to block someone. Like, it's not your job to, like, explain your personhood to somebody. So if someone does come in your comments and do weird things, which happens to me very, very rarely, I can't stress that enough. It doesn't happen a lot, at least in the corners of TikTok where I have found my safe haven, but it's probably because I was watching videos first and kind of like trained the algorithm to be like, to keep me on the right side of TikTok. It doesn't happen often to me, but occasionally I'll get someone who comes into the comment and is like, go make me a sandwich or whatever. And I'll be like, instantly blocked. It's so not my problem, Michael. And that's something that's like, don't let those things like hang you up a lot. And the more people you block, the safer your community is, the more TikTok puts together to maybe keep you away from people like that. And you'll be able to create a space, curate your experience. That's one of the most important things you can do online, is realize that you don't have to talk to people you don't want to, and it's not something that's like gonna hurt your brand or your book or whatever, because it's not like they were gonna buy the book, they hate you. So your safety is paramount. It's the first thing.
I think we've said a lot in this discussion, but the one thing I really want to reiterate is leverage your pets. If you have an animal, put them on your account, because people want to see them. I want to see them. This is completely selfish. Please show me your pets.
I think Writer Cat has like 25,000 views, 25 million. I don't remember. Writer Cat, huge hashtag.
I like to add that, especially for the people like me who are still within, 4, 5, 6 months. I can't remember when I started, but you're always a student, and everything I've always learned for anything in life is you're always a student. You're never the true master. So you're always going to be a student. You're always learning. So just keep an open mind on everything you do. I've learned a lot just listening to everyone here talk, and fill me with ideas and inspirations for what I want to do when we close up. And so just be open-minded and open to trying something new, but also learn more about what you're doing and what you want to post, because you're never done learning. So you're always a student, and just kind of keep with that vibe and have fun with it.
That's a great ending tip. Thank you, Joseph. So this is recorded in advance of the June actual conference date, but we will be, some of us at least, are in the Selling Your Books on TikTok channel on the Right Hive 2023 Discord, and you're welcome to ask some questions there, and we'll talk to you there, and follow these awesome writers' accounts on TikTok, and witness the advice in action. Thank you so much, all of you, for your time and for recording with me today.
It's been a
It
delight.
was fun.
Had a great time.